What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Black and Diagnosed. I'm your host, Gerron Scott. I just want to welcome you into the garden. The world is heavy, and we are constantly out here performing, trying to prove we got it all together. But right now, you can drop the act, take off the mask. If you're navigating mental health, holding it down for someone who is, or just out here trying to find your footing, you belong in this room. Let's find the words, name what hurts, and get our rhythm back. Pull up a seat, and let's talk. Welcome back to Black and Diagnosed. I'm your host, Gerron Scott. Thank you for listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm here with Candicee. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, thank you so much. This is such an amazing opportunity to be on your podcast. I really am so thrilled to be here. I'm Dr. Candicee Childs. I'm a third-year resident at the Massachusetts General Hospital Adult Psychiatry program with McLean Hospital as well. And just so excited to be here to discuss mental health and also just get a chance to answer some awesome questions.
So I understand that you're really big into the arts. What is your favorite type of artwork?
Honestly, I would say my favorite type of artwork is actually Impressionism. And I learned so much about it when I went over to Paris, actually, a few months ago. And I went to Giverny and I learned about Claude Monet and Impressionism. And I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful form of like painting and art. I just love how they emphasize essentially following the light in the pictures and making sure to kind of show all the intricacies of light in like nature and in the painting and focusing on that. And it's not about all of the details. It's not like the kind of artwork where you see every specific detail, but it really just takes in like the natural, outdoors or whatever the scene is. And it doesn't focus on those details, but more so just how you're naturally like seeing things. And I love it. So Impressionism, I would say, is my favorite type of like painting and like artwork. And I recently actually started painting again. That's something I did years ago, and I started up again. And I was painting some of the Monet paintings myself. And so I really have enjoyed that as well.
Okay, so you paint.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your favorite painting that you've painted?
Oh,
Or
God.
the one that you're most proud of, maybe not necessarily your favorite?
Honestly, I would say that my favorite painting would actually have to be one of my more recent ones where I actually did use a tutorial to help me paint, and that's totally fine. Like as a beginner painter, you can use tutorials. But I was using this tutorial to paint Monet's garden, and it was just such a beautiful painting with like the lake and the lily pads and the bridge. It took me probably 5 or 6 hours to do. And I could have added more the next day, but I said, no, I'm just going to leave it. But I thought it was just such a wonderful like project. It was very like peaceful doing it. And I feel like, since I have been painting for a few years now, I felt like I was able to actually see some good mastery of some skills with my paintbrush strokes and things like that. So that was actually pretty neat to actually see that. And I think it came out pretty well. So I was very excited to paint that. I think it came out pretty great. And I really love it. I actually have it hanging in my living room, which is awesome. So
That's amazing. If you're ever in Richmond, Virginia, you have to visit the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. It is by far one of the best museums, and it's in the middle of Richmond. And you just don't think this quaint town. Richmond is a great city, by the way. Let me not undersell it, but it's a really dope museum.
Mhm.
So I'm not much of a painter, but I do like taking photos. Before I started my PhD program, I like to just go out, take nature photos. Nature photography was my thing. Abstract, street photography, those were my jam. So I did a little bit of astrophotography, had an astrophotography kit. That was my jam.
Wow.
But we do share a common hobby. We both like to write.
Yeah.
I'm currently turning my dissertation into a book. My God, the feedback has been fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Some of the feedback has been like, hey, here's very constructive, very constructive feedback.
Mhm.
You gotta have some thick skin. Tinder has prepared me very well for writing. Let me just say that. You think you can handle rejection from a woman? Try writing.
Yeah, yeah.
Try
Yeah, I
writing.
totally
That
understand
that'll
that.
teach you rejection. So I understand you wrote a couple of books. You want to tell
Yeah.
us about them?
Yeah, sure, sure, absolutely. So the first book I ever wrote and self-published was actually a Christian memoir that I wrote. It was called Lemons, Lemonade, and the Lemonade Stand, My Bittersweet Journey to Medical School. I know it's a long title, but I thought it really encompassed my journey to medical school, since I'm the first person in my family on both sides to actually go into medicine and then be able to matriculate into medical school and become a doctor. And so, I wrote that book because I remember going through the process of trying to apply to medical school, trying to get, my application together, trying to find mentors. And it was really hard. There was so much, you speak about rejection. I mean, gosh, trying to apply to medical school, I've met rejection over and over and over again, to the point where I was just like, man, I wish I had a story to read about this sort of process because I felt like it challenged me, not only just like, physically, because you had to stay up, studying all these long hours for the medical college admissions tests, and all these other things, but like, also spiritually as well as financially, because it's a big investment, like applying to all these schools and things. And so, I had told myself if I ever get into medical school, I'm going to write a book about it so someone else can feel empowered and encouraged to apply. And, it's not even just about applying to medical school, but it really was a book to share that no matter what it is that you're pursuing in life, that God has a purpose and a plan for you. And I'm a woman of faith. And so I just wanted to kind of share my story as a way of sharing with others that, you can have a dream and a desire and you can work hard towards, something that is a big goal of yours, and, to just hold on to your faith and, to continue working towards reaching that goal or reaching that dream, and to not give up. 'Cause there was a time where I actually felt like giving up, and it's so funny to me how, like, the day I felt like I gave up was the day I received acceptance, like, not even 15 minutes later. And so I felt like, wow, God, that was really poorly of me to get to that point. But I was like, I think this is important for me to include in the book. So I wanted to really show that, and really provide a story to people to stay encouraged while they're trying to, reach their goals or while they're trying to better themselves or achieve something. And so that's kind of where that book came from. And so that came out during medical school. Like I said, it was about my journey to medical school. So while I was in med school, I wrote the book and I self-published it. I know, like, where's the time? But I found a way. And that was great. I really enjoyed that. And then essentially, like, funny enough, when I was actually at my hairdresser's appointment, like 2 or 3 years ago, I was telling her about my story and everything, much like I'm telling you. And she was like, have you ever thought about writing a children's book? I think kids need to learn about this too, to not give up. And I said, that's an awesome idea. So shout out to her. She's amazing. And so that was the idea. And so I actually wrote that book, a picture book for kids. And it really is just, I really do believe that storytelling is a powerful tool for empowerment and healing. And so I wanted to write a heartfelt story about, encouraging children to dream boldly, persevere through challenges, and kind of embrace the sour and sweet moments of life. So it's called CC Sour and Sweet Journey to Medical School. And I'm very excited that it was released last week. So I'm very excited.
That's awesome. So make sure you get that book. Want to say the title one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's CC's Sour and Sweet Journey to Medical School. It is available on Book Baby and Amazon. And again, it's, my hope was just to promote emotional wellness, representation, and resilience and self-belief among children, especially kids from underrepresented communities, since there are a lot of, doctors or professionals in medicine who are of color. So being able to see a story of someone of color going into medicine, I thought was a great opportunity to share that in the story as well.
So yeah, why medicine for you and why psychiatry specifically?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a great question. And I tell you, that was something I also highlighted in my memoir as well. But I'll just kind of give you the short snippet of it. To be honest, I've always loved science, and I, of course, love the idea of helping people, but there are a lot of ways that you can help people. So, as I was kind of going through college and after dealing with some experiences of, losing grandparents and kind of thinking about things, I was like, I really want to figure out what my purpose is in life. And I remember actually going to a career counselor and asking him to help me find my purpose in life, which is like, something he's never heard of before from a college student. But I remember us having that great conversation and, after sharing with him what my aspirations were in life and what I'm hoping to do to help people through healing and through science, he actually recommended medicine. So that was like the initial part of the journey where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to look into this. This wasn't something I ever thought of in my life before. I never considered it. I didn't even know it was possible for me because, again, I never saw anyone like me who looked like me. And so it was fascinating to me that this would be something he would bring up. So eventually I did look into it and I shadowed doctors and I thought what they were doing was great for the community and for people. And then when I was in med school, I essentially got to the place of like, well, I'm just going to imagine myself in all these different fields and figure out which one would be best for me, because we have to rotate through a lot of the, different specialties from pediatrics to surgery, OBGYN, all those. And so I was kind of giving them a try, kind of seeing like, okay, can I imagine myself doing this? But when we got to psychiatry, which was actually my last rotation, it was like from the first day I knew it was meant for me. And I thought the reason for that is because it's one of those fields in medicine where I think that there's a sense of vulnerability that patients have with you that was so evident for me on the first day. And the fact that people are sharing their stories with you and seeking out help, and you're essentially partnering with them to figure out how to help them is great. And being able to have that extra time to be able to talk with your patients fully, get their story. I'm a storyteller. So to be able to sit there and hear someone's story was tremendous for me, and figuring out creative ways to help people with even some of the same chief complaints. You can have 5 patients who all have depression, but depression looks so different from person to person depending on what they're going through, experiences. And I just thought, wow, this could be a great field to go into, to be able to apply like a more personalized approach for each person. And so there's that blend of science, but also that like sense of like art of being able to really configure and tailor a treatment for that person depending on what they're going through. And so that's what kind of led me to psychiatry. I was like really blown away by the work that people were doing with mental health. And I honestly didn't know much about it until that time. But when I started learning more about it and how much of a need that there is in our community, in our world, I said, I'd want to help out and really help bridge that gap. So that's why I ended up choosing psychiatry.
You said depression, there might be 5 different reasons why people are depressed. And that may require 5 different medications. And
Mm-hmm.
medications, as we know, can have 5 different effects on 5 different people,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's the effects, and they can range from good effects to bad effects. Some
Yeah.
people react well to medicine, some people react bad to medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help patients unmask that stigma when they have bad reactions, right? People are just like, don't take that medicine. You're going to lose yourself into that medicine. I
Mm-hmm.
think back to when I started Lamictal.
Yeah.
Um, I went through it, and I'm not sure if my going through it was common or not, but I felt like shit. Like I hated myself. I was just like, I want to give up. I thought about every mistake I've ever made, but I had to power through because I was tired of making those same mistakes over and over. My psychiatrist, she was like, this is going to help. So just keep going. It's going to help. And at this point, I was so desperate to get the help that I needed
Yeah.
that I was like, I'm going to have to power through it, because other than me crying, it wasn't having ill effects on my body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, other than me just being down in the dumps.
Yeah.
But when we added the antidepressant, it got me a little too up. I was just like, I feel too elevated. Like I feel like I was slipping
Mm-hmm.
into a mania, to a
Mm-hmm.
manic state,
Yeah.
and we had to dial it back down. But there is like some stigma behind those medications
Yeah.
where it's just like, I don't want to lose who I am, right?
Yeah.
So how do you help the Black community unmask some of those stigmas?
Yeah, I mean that's really such an excellent question, and I first want to say thanks so much for being so vulnerable to share that with the public about even your own experience with treatment and working with providers and feeling that stigma. I'm sure that takes a lot of courage to share, and so I really want to acknowledge that first before I answer the question. But the way that I kind of think about it, in my training, I work with these kind of issues every day. And here's kind of what I learned clinically and personally, just based off of observation is, the thing is, in a lot of communities, and specifically Black community, I think medication is often seen as a weakness or a moral failure, right? Like you
Yeah,
weren't strong enough to do this yourself and now you need this medication. But the thing
absolutely.
is, we don't call insulin weakness if you have diabetes, like we don't call certain other medications a weakness. And so why is it that mental health, anything for mental health in terms of medication would be a weakness? And I think what we have to understand is that, like mental illness is not a character flaw. It's essentially your brain being under strain, and that medication is not this like chemical cage, right? I let's talk about this through like a metaphor, because I'm a very visual person. So let's imagine a garden, right? So imagine there you have a garden and your brain is a garden, right? So let's say biology is the soil. Let's say the weather is going to be trauma, maybe the environment. Let's say your thoughts can be either flowers or weeds. And medication in this sort of model would be essentially the tool that could help you with the overgrowth of your garden, right? Therapy could be essentially teaching you how to tend to your garden. And let's say your community is like sunlight and water, right? I'm hoping that people will understand that medication is a tool. It's something that we utilize and something that we recommend to patients to essentially help them stabilize, help them to essentially clear out their garden and clear out that overgrowth in their garden, so to speak. And I want people to understand that, again, it's not a chemical cage, but it really helps you stabilize, can sometimes clear that cognitive fog. And it's not meant to be a replacement for therapy, prayer, discipline, or community. It's meant to make those things more accessible. You know what I mean? And so when someone is taking a medication and it helps them, why should it matter that they're taking a medication if they're more functional, if they're able to better tend to their work, their relationships, be able to engage in the community more? It really is a tool to help you be able to function in the best way possible. And so, I also kind of think about what you said about, the medication, like changing who you are. And I usually will tell patients, like, medications don't change who you are. It helps you get back to who you are. Because a lot of times
Absolutely.
you're not really yourself, right? Because sometimes that depression, that anxiety, those obsessions and compulsions, they take over. Your brain is really under so much strain when those things happen. And it's okay to use this tool. This tool is medication to be able to help you kind of essentially overcome those so that you can be able to function in the way that would be best for you in terms of being able to work and being able to participate in your hobbies, relationships, that sort of thing. So, medication, it doesn't give you a new personality. It just reduces the noise so your actual personality can come forward, essentially. So you can be your best self. But understand that medication is a treatment. It has risks, it has benefits, and it's very much up to the patient to be able to, understand those risks and benefits with the provider after they discuss it with you and really compare, if I were to start this medication and like, what are the risks and benefits of that? If I don't start this medication, what are the risks and benefits? And you have to be able to kind of weigh those and see, well, honestly, like, let's just say, for example, you decide not to take the medication. You might feel more miserable. Your depression could get worse. It could get to the point where you're thinking of harming yourself and you're not really feeling like yourself. And it could affect how you work, how you eat, which could affect your physical health, how you go to work or not are not able to go to work. And so finances can then go down the drain. Like, there's so many things that could happen. But I think it's important for people to really think about the risk and the benefits and really be able to talk with their providers about those and be able to make a educated decision on what they think is best for you. And medication's not always the answer. There's also therapy, that's also very helpful, or other like ways of treatment. And so just understand medication is not the only answer. And it's even when you are taking it, it's not a magic pill and won't make everything go away. But like I said, it could kind of help clear that fog. It could help make things more accessible to help you live the kind of life you want to live.
It's funny. I love that metaphor because the cover art for this podcast is a garden.
Yeah.
So I love that this theme of the podcast is a garden.
Yeah.
So I love that. Thank you for doing that. You kind of plugged in the podcast.
Yeah.
And one of the things you just mentioned is it's not a magic pill. You're not cured when you take medication. It allows you to function at a baseline so you can continue to get the help you need, so you can maybe perhaps go to therapy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how medication and therapy play a role together. So
Yeah.
how do they function together?
Yeah. I mean, just like you said, and it very much depends on the situation. Um, there are times where therapy by itself is more than enough. And we do see that in research that, especially different modalities or types of therapy can be just as effective as medication on its own. So I do want to put in the plug there. But, again, they're essentially both tools that help. But I have seen situations where, for instance, depends on the severity of someone's symptoms. If someone is severely depressed, severely anxious, and they can't really participate in therapy in a way that would be therapeutic and that would be beneficial, then sometimes medication could take that edge off or get them to establish that new baseline, like you said, to be able to then function enough to be able to like participate in the therapy. Because, one of the symptoms of, depression is like poor concentration. And so, for instance, if you can't concentrate because you're so depressed, it might be really hard to do therapy. But it's possible that, for instance, if someone really is that severely depressed and they take an antidepressant and then they start therapy, it could really help together, to kind of help bridge those gaps. So, I think that they can certainly go hand in hand. Medication is not always the answer by itself. Therapy is not always the answer by itself, but it could be for some folks, especially if they're a little hesitant to start medications, which is okay. Like I said, there are risks and benefits to medication. Let's not act like medication has no side effects, because let's be honest, there are side effects. It's like any other drug. So I think it's okay to pursue just therapy alone. But if you do have someone who wants to have some medication and use that tool to be able to help them better engage in therapy, I think that they can certainly go hand in hand as well.
Yeah, let's talk about side effects a little more. How do you speak to someone about those side effects?
Well, I mean, I essentially try to share with them what the evidence shows in terms of what are the most common side effects that are experienced. Sometimes, depending on the medication, I'll share with them what I've personally observed in my practice or what I've seen in observation from patients. And then we just kind of discuss based on that, what they are comfortable with. And also letting them know that this is a partnered, agreed, like this is something we're doing collaborative together. We are partners in this care plan. And so my goal is to help my patients make an informed decision. And as a part of that, my job is to be able to share with you what the risks are. And so the side effects you might experience. And so once I'm able to be transparent, kind of share about that, we just talk about again the risks and benefits and kind of, weigh those and just kind of think of the ratio and then kind of leave it up to them to say, are they willing to consider this medication and the side effects that might be involved or not. And sometimes, there are side effects that do occur where we could utilize other medications to help minimize the burden of those side effects. So it's not something they have to kind of deal with long term. And then there are a lot of times where side effects can just be temporary while they're starting a medication, or while there's a dose change with medication. So I try to also share with them that it may just be a very short term sort of thing you might experience. But, I definitely try to give them as much information as possible so that we can both decide together what's the path forward.
So, what are some ways that clients or patients can best advocate for themselves when it comes to medication? So, for example, let's say I'm taking a medication and I just feel like it's not working. I'm gaining too much weight, or I'm losing too much weight, or something's just not right. How can I go about maybe changing that medication?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts there, just being able to share with your provider what you're experiencing. Because I'm not the one taking it. I'm not feeling those side effects. You are, or the patient is. And so I think a big part of it is I'm hoping at this point the patient feels like they have good enough rapport with the physician that they're working with to be able to share with them what they're experiencing and be taken seriously. And from there, again, it very much depends. Sometimes the side effects are anticipated. So it might be a situation where the physician says, hey, if it's to a point where it's unbearable, we can certainly change it. But it's possible these side effects could also go away in a week. If you're willing to wait and see, we could try that. If not, we can, certainly switch. But I think the best way to advocate is just to definitely bring up your concerns, and for the physicians and providers to be curious and ask questions as well, and really get an understanding of that patient's experience with the medication and their concerns, and really take them seriously and consider other options. So it's definitely a collaborative experience, and it should be. It's patient-centered, and so being able to have good rapport so that your patients can essentially tell you what's going on, I think is a really big part of this.
Yeah, one of my first psychiatrists concerned with the antidepressant, like I said before, was going too up. She said to me, Gerron, I'd rather you be depressed than manic. I never really understood that, but she was just like, when you're manic, you're more likely to commit suicide. And I was kind of blown away because I never thought of it like that. I'm thinking, you're down in the dumps, you don't want to be here no more. Like, let me end it. And I got to be honest, I never really seen myself living really past me getting my PhD. I always knew I wanted to get my PhD, but I didn't really plan to live beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the medication has saved my life,
Yeah.
like being diagnosed.
Yeah.
Just to be honest, I never had a plan. I just knew it was just like, that's my final accomplishment. I don't really see why I need to live beyond getting my PhD. Right? I just know I wanted to do that. But I found there's so much more to live. I have a family. I'm expanding my family. I'm doing all these things that I want to do. Right? I have all these plans. So it's something that I found more reasons to live,
Yeah.
mainly for myself, that I just want to see the world.
Yeah.
But I just always thought that was interesting. So I just really want to know what are your thoughts are on that.
I mean, honestly, like, well, first, thanks again for being so vulnerable and sharing that, with the audience and myself. Again, it takes a lot of courage. I mean, my thoughts are, in terms of, depression, mania, like if it gets to the point where it's so severe, it certainly can. Um, there could always be like suicide, where someone either has more thoughts or is considering it. And so, it's definitely something that can occur. And I think that, the fact that you were able to start a medication that really helped you get back to your baseline and help you then start to have more future orientation is really powerful. So I think it really just shows the power that medication has, that it could be truly life-saving. And your story really illustrates that.
Yeah, definitely. It's that's part of the reason why I like sharing my story, because it has saved my life. And I know medication, it acts differently for different people, but I'm such a big advocate for it because I know what it can do, right? And I know what I have. I have a great life.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wish I was paid more, but that's everybody, right?
Yeah.
I think Elon Musk wishes he was paid more. Um, but
Yeah.
it's just one of those things to where I love my life. I'm
Yeah.
glad I have it.
Yeah.
Besides the money, I would not change it for anything. I would not change anything about my life.
That's amazing. I
Um,
love to hear that. That is truly amazing.
so what what do you tell your clients who have suicide ideation?
Mm.
Like ones who may not have a plan but are just like saying, I don't see a way forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's first good to kind of think about what exactly someone voicing suicide is telling us or telling me. And I think essentially it's a cry for help. It's a cry for relief. It's not attention seeking. Because I think some people have the impression that, like, oh, if someone says that they want to kill themselves or that they want to die, that they're seeking attention. And I don't think that that's something that we should be thinking about. I think that as we are hearing people share these thoughts, that it really is an unspoken cry for relief, that whatever they're going through is so horrendous that essentially they want to escape, whether it's pain or a certain situation. And I think that I kind of frame it as it's the brain's emergency alarm system going off. And when someone's thinking about ending their life, it just tells me that their nervous system is so overwhelmed beyond its ability to cope. And sometimes it's not necessarily that people want to die, but they just want the pain to stop. And I think what then enters into that is this feeling of shame, that they're not strong enough, that they're weak, or that they're selfish for considering this. And I think that, again, when I'm hearing someone saying that they're having these thoughts, it's really just them letting me know that what I'm going through really feels unbearable, that I need it to stop. And so if we kind of go back into the garden, I think that when someone tells me that they're feeling suicidal or they're having thoughts of suicide, it's not that the person themselves are broken, but that the garden, like their internal garden, has hit a drought, an absolute drought. So if that's the case, I think that as I'm talking with patients, I try to explore what it is that they are going through that's causing them to feel this pain, have these thoughts. Of course, at that point in time, risk management, safety assessment. I need to know how severe it is. I need to know if you've had a plan. I need to know if you have been, preparing for it, thinking about it for a while. Is this something impulsive? Is this something that's been planned? So we're definitely trying to figure that out because I need to know about intervention, how quickly we need to move to get you to getting that support and help. But I just, I think the correct response, regardless of the severity, is just support and intervention and not shame. Because again, when your brain is under all this tremendous pressure, you're dealing with trauma, you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with all these things, you lose future orientation. And like you were saying with your story, you couldn't even think past getting your degree because of what you were experiencing was so bad that I'm assuming that, you literally could not envision a future for yourself or reasons to keep on going. And so at that point, it just kind of like shows you that the mind narrows, and that narrowing can produce those thoughts of escape. And a lot of times those thoughts of escape then lead to the thoughts of suicide. And I think it's just for your brain in like a survival mode. And so just talking with them, providing empathy, providing validation for those underlying feelings that they might be having, like depression or grief or whatever it is that may be experiencing, and then finding ways to support them in the moment in our interaction while we're talking right then and there, but also, in terms of support. So like, do they need to go into a psychiatric hospitalization to receive more eyes, like to essentially have more eyes on them? Or, do they need like a day program where they can go through and get, support through group therapy, or if there needs to be adjustments with medication or combination of things. But the biggest thing I really try to share with my patients is, that this is essentially an SOS, and I'm going to do what I can to help you in this moment in time.
Oftentimes, I think people say, you're just seeking attention. You just want some attention. And when I hear that, I think that kind of pushes people more towards it. It's just like, I don't want attention. Like, I need help, right? I don't want attention. I am going through pain. I am in pain. I don't envision a way out of this. I don't see a future for myself. Like, I didn't see a future for myself.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what my next goal was. I've always looked at my life as steps, right? Like, this is my goal. I went from goal to goal to goal. And that was my final goal. I didn't have any goals after that, right? And I had to realize, what is my next step? What are my other goals? And it's honestly, I don't have suicide ideation anymore, but it was still something to figure out for a long time after I finished my PhD, where it's just like, what else do I want to accomplish in life? Right? Because I made it. I'm the first person on both sides of my family to get a doctoral degree. So it's just one of those things to where it's like, what left do I have to prove to the world?
Yeah.
Like, I did it.
Yeah.
And I know I won't be the last, right? But I made a way. I did it my way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely just one of those things that I feel like there was nothing more left for me to do afterwards. So
yeah.
So it was tough, like getting to this point where it's just like, now there's more for me to do. Like, God isn't finished with me yet.
Yeah. And it is tough. And it is very tough. And I can certainly even feel like, as we're talking, like how tough it was for you. And I think it really also speaks to your resilience and your strength, and to be able to keep on going, to be able to seek out that help and ask for help. And that's the thing too, like, even when people are afraid to seek out help, I think that what we have to understand that seeking out help in the moment is not failing your village or community, because a lot of times sometimes people feel like you have to be strong or, you know, handle things yourself, but I think it's giving your village opportunity to support you, and understanding that if you are reaching out for help, that this is really like a distress signal. If someone is sharing their thoughts of leaving this place, and I think it's something we have to take seriously every time and respond to urgently and not judge. It's not our jobs to judge people for the hardships that life gives them, but to help them. And I literally told a patient that a couple of days ago. He was like, "Oh, thank you so much for, listening and not judging me." And I said, "Yeah, yeah. I mean, how could I judge you for life being hard? You're just doing the best you can, and I'm here to help you in any way that I can." And yeah, I think that that's something that people often need to hear. It's like, I can't judge you for your life being hard. I can just provide you with the support and help that you need. And it's okay to seek out help.
Yeah, I think life be lifing. This shit be getting hard.
Life really do feel, and I know. I mean, I've had my own share of things that have gone on. I mean, even, losing a parent while I was in residency, and then having to go to work and provide therapy for people who were going through grief just like I was. And to have to put on a smile, or, feel like I'm putting on a face, or keep going. And so, life, like you said, life be lifing. And the thing is, you don't know what the next day will bring. But I really do try to err on the side of seeking out help when you need it. And I surely did. I sought out help. I sought out my own therapy, and it's great. I think every psychiatrist needs a therapist, by the way. I'll just put in that plug. But it's something that you shouldn't feel ashamed for when life is hard, no matter who you are, where you come from. That's what these resources are there for, is to just help you keep going and to help you hopefully establish a sense that things can get better.
Definitely. We talk about grief, and grief never ends, right? I think for me, grief is what kicked off my cycle. I think I've always been bipolar, right? There's not one moment that defines your bipolarness, but I think there's a moment specifically where my brain was just like, we're going full in with this bipolar stuff, right? Where I read about it in the book I'm trying to publish, if these academic publishers will say yes. And I talk about it. I say, when my uncle passed, that's the moment when my brain was just like, hey, I'm not protecting you anymore, right? You're slipping into months-long mania, right? Full-blown mania. I think before that, I was manic, but that's the moment where I look at, like, that was my life-changing moment. I think my uncle was able to ground me. Then when I lost him, there was no more anchor to this world. So grief plays such a big part in mental illness and mental health. And I think it's an understated part. When I wish I would have known about grief counseling back then. And the irony of it all, I was in a counseling program when I lost my uncle. I won't speak about that program, because if you don't have nice things to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that counseling program. I won't give any energy to it. I won't obsess over it. My psychiatrist already thinks I have OCD, so I'm not going to obsess over it. But, let's talk about that strong Black man and that strong Black woman. We talk about grief, and you talked about having to put a smile on, put a face on for your clients. And it's hard, right? And, I've lost I've lost uncles, cousins, aunts. And, every day you got to wake up and say, you know what? I have to keep pushing forward, I lost an uncle and it hurt, right? When my uncle passed, my uncle raised me, and it hurt. It hurt so bad when I lost my uncle.
Yeah, I'm
But
so sorry to hear that.
he wouldn't want me to grieve in a way that was destructive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I had to put on a front for a long time. And I feel like that was unfair to me because I had to put on the strong face for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if I crumbled, so many other people would crumble around me.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like that wasn't fair.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, a lot of Black people, we all do that. And it's funny because we're all trying to be the strong one. Like everyone around us is being strong. And it's just like, if we all took a second to be vulnerable, we all can grieve a little better and be a little more healthy. Like we all can be strong. Who are we lifting up?
Yeah.
If we're all in the gym, who are we trying to lift up? If we're all lifting by ourselves, like what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're saying really resonates with me, and it brings in a lot of important things. And so first, let me kind of just address the grief, because grief is a real thing. And there's this quote, and I believe her name is Jamie Anderson, where she said, "Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give but cannot. All
I
the
love
unspent
that.
love gathers up in your corners of your eyes, the lump of your throat, and in the hollow of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go." And so when I think about that, like you said, grief could be a lifelong process, and because you really love that person, and it's hard to live in a reality when they're not there. And I think it's okay to experience grief. It gets to the point where you are grieving so much where it's like impacting your ability to move on in life or to be able to do things, or you want to join that person in death. That's a whole nother kind of situation. But I think grief really is just all that love that you have for that person. And so, when you do experience that, it should become so important to be patient with yourself and self-compassionate, and to grant yourself grace. I tell people that all the time, like, grant yourself grace, because what you've just gone through with losing a loved one is really hard. And no one understands what it feels like to grieve that person but you, because your relationship with that person was between you and them. So people could have an understanding maybe of what it might be like, but it's not the same understanding of your experience, because you're the only one who has experienced that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there, that like the way we look at grief, I think it's something that is a normal experience when you have someone that you love and you miss, and that's okay. But this, strong Black woman, man, like archetype, I think my understanding is it kind of developed for survival, especially back in slavery and like those times of like oppression and having to be strong and not being able to share with others like what's going on. It was a survival framework. And I think the problem comes in when there's this, even talking in modern day times of, trying to be the strong Black man or woman, where it becomes this constant performance or overfunctioning that occurs as a result of being this strong Black man or woman. And that really, if we think about our brain and our nervous system, that keeps us in high alert all the time. It's very stressful. And that constant chronic overfunctioning and performance, that then suppresses the opportunity for vulnerability. And vulnerability is not a person collapsing. It's really just that person being able to pause and kind of recalibrate. And so like you were saying with the gyms, like you can't just keep going all the time. You have to rest. Like your muscles can't even grow that well if you keep doing the strength exercises without having a day of rest. Like even your muscles need that. So like of course your whole body needs it. Your brain needs that, right? Um, so I think that, you know, there might be a situation where people fear that if they stop performing, that everything will fall apart. And that's not true. You know, some things may, but, you know, at the end of the day, we can only do but so much. We can only carry but so much. And it's okay to be vulnerable. And it's okay to need help. Because, you know, if you kind of think about like a structure, right? And if you're a pillar that's holding up the structure, it can feel like just admitting you're struggling could lead to a collapse. And it might feel like if you stop standing strong, that everything will fall apart. But I don't know if you've seen certain structures, but even if one pillar might fall, the other ones still stand. So it's like it's okay sometimes for us to be in a place where we're not able to necessarily hold everything up and be vulnerable. We just need some reinforcement to help us, you know, not carry all that weight by ourselves, so to speak. Because even the strongest structure needs reinforcement, right? So, you know, I think that unmasking and taking off that cape of trying to be the strong Black man or woman is important because it then leads to restoration, where you can rest, you can recalibrate, and you can actually return stronger as a result of that. And so I think that it's so important for people to be reminded of that. And also that, you know, again, with the chronic overfunctioning and performance and stress, it really does impact your physical health. I mean, there's so many studies that show that the increased stress leads to more cardiac problems and other like problems. And so, you know, it's your body telling you that there's something wrong. It's in this, you know, fight or flight sort of state all the time. That's going to bring a lot of wear and tear. And so that's why I would encourage people to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to take time to rest, recalibrate. And you don't always have to be strong because there's somebody else who could help you in your moments where you do feel like you need help, and that's okay.
Yeah, stress kills. I strongly believe that. I try to live a stress-free life. I work with college students though, so not all the time that's stress-free. Sometimes in the semester where they're just like, Dr. Scott, I need help graduating. You're just like, why'd you wait to the end of the semester to say you need help graduating? But, you know, it's it's that vulnerability piece is so key.
Mm-hmm.
I think people need to be more vulnerable, but it's so hard.
It is
It's
hard.
so hard to be vulnerable.
It is. You're opening yourself up to the risk of judgment. You're opening yourself up to, you know, all kind of different things that come with vulnerability. I mean, it takes a lot to open up and to ask for help. It's not a small feat, but it could really be helpful in the end, especially depending on like who you go to for help or what kind of help you receive. It could really be very beneficial. And, you know, we want to extend ourselves that self-compassion and grace. And a part of that is just understanding that there are times where we might need help, and that's okay.
Definitely, definitely. I think part of the podcast is for people to understand it is okay to receive help, to get help, whether it's therapy, psychiatry, prayer, whatever it is that you need. I want you to be able to get that help and advocate for yourself. I think throughout this discussion, one of the things that you highlighted is the ability for people to advocate for themselves. So I greatly appreciate that. How many 5Ks have you run since COVID started?
Oh my goodness. I probably, oh man, at least 15.
God dang.
Yeah, at least. I mean, to be fair, like these were just like the races. But like I was running at least before residency, like after COVID, like around that time, because I think I started around the time. But I'd say like I used to run an average of like 30 miles a week. I was getting up to 40 and then residency happened and I just didn't have the time. But I was running a lot.
I do not run, yo. If you see me running, that means something is chasing me, and you better run too. If you see me running, you better run too.
Oh man. Hey, I'll be honest though. I've been running, but I've been leaning more into walking because it's low impact for your joints. And so walking is just as great. But I do enjoy running. Something about it. I mean, I'm hoping one day I can like run in one of these marathons or a half marathon. So that's definitely a goal on the list. So
I hope you accomplish that goal. I'll be cheering you on from the sidelines.
hey, I need some encouragement. So I appreciate it. I would love that.
So now's the time. I'm going to turn it over to you so you
Sure.
can ask any questions that you want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly very curious about, if I had to just ask one question, I'd love to kind of know what led to you wanting to create this podcast and what's your passion behind it.
I would say just my desire to give people a stage. I think we all have gifts, and one of my gifts is the ability to talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've done presentations at the local level, national level, right? I've been recognized as a leader. I've done keynote speeches, all of that. But I've also given people the platform to speak. And that's what I love doing most, is giving other people the platform, because I know I can do this. I can do this by myself, but it's so important to give other people that time, for the other people to drop that knowledge, because there's so many knowledgeable Black people out there, right? And that's what I want to share. I want to share in on that knowledge. And I love to learn, right? I love speaking to so many different people and learning so many different things. And
Yeah.
I want to share the opportunity of learning with so many others. And what's the other part? My passion.
Yeah, your passion behind it, which is kind of like what you already answered. But if there's like anything that you can think of that really makes you even like passionate about this.
Uh, my passion is, there's just like, doing my dissertation, there was no research on Black men with bipolar disorder, like none that I could find.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why aren't we in the research? So my goal is to make sure that we have a voice.
Love that. I do. I love that. I think that's really incredible and so empowering. And it's just such a very impactful, beautiful thing that you have. And I really appreciate you for sharing that. It's really, really amazing.
Of course. Any more questions?
No, I don't think I have any more questions, but I just really want to say thank you so very much. I mean, you and I are so alike in so many ways, how, we want to do things to really give people a voice, or, that we value learning because, I'm still in my training, so I'm still learning as well. But I signed on to be a lifelong learner when I decided to become a physician, a doctor. So but I very much am inspired by what you do, by your story. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to have, spoken with you today, and for this amazing audience to be able to hear what we discussed today.
Thank you so much. And one more time, what is the name of your children's book?
So my children's book is named Cece's Sour and Sweet Journey to Medical School. If you'd like to learn more about the book or me, you can always visit me at my website, which is www.candicee, spelled CANDICEE -childs, CHILDS.com. There'll be a lot of information about it, how to purchase the book, which is again on Amazon and Book Baby. But thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. I hope you all enjoy the kids' picture book. It's great.
All right, get the book for your kids, y'all, and for yourself. It's a great book. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. This really has been such a pleasure. And, if I could just say one last thing, like, tend to your gardens. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to care for ourselves. And, whether it's medication, therapy as tools, prayer, community. You all are worth receiving that care. And so just understand that there are a lot of resources out there to help you tend to your gardens and tend to yourself. And, I just definitely encourage anyone out there, if you ever need any help, to don't feel ashamed for it. Just certainly reach out and ask. And I hope that you will receive it. So don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay to do that.
Thank you for tending to the garden with me today. Seriously, just remember, stability isn't a straight line, it's a rhythm. Just because the music slows down for a second, it doesn't mean the song is over. Give yourself some radical grace this week. If this conversation brought a little bit of light into your space, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. Share this with someone who needs it, and come lock in with us on Instagram at Black and Diagnosed. I'm always looking to build connections, so if you want to jump on a guest spot or have a collaboration in mind, hit my email at info@gerronscott.com. Let's build. Till next time, take care of yourselves.